Okay, my name is Mike Carter, KC6MGM, and I am the coordinator for the Mendocino County Office of Auxiliary Communication Service for the Office of Emergency Services here in beautiful Betsagi, California. We're going to discuss amateur radio procedures tonight. And basically what we are going to be discussing will be, if I can get this to work.
Just set it.
We're going to be discussing the forms that are normally used during emergency radio operations. The three forms we'll be discussing tonight are the ARRL radiogram, the ICS 213, and the Form 309 radio log. We'll start out with the ARRL radiogram. And this is the official form used by the radio operators on the National Traffic System. It's also used on emergency radio nets when another specific form is not required. All of our medical facilities in the county and all of our school districts in the county actually have packets of these programs at their offices. So if we have to send an amateur radio operator there, they'll have all of the appropriate forms that they need. Plus, a number of our amateur radio operators here have been given a packet that contains all of the forms also, so that they can take it with them.
In the last 15 years.
On the radiogram, the preamble shall include the number, which is the message number and sequence for each station, the precedence, emergency, priority, welfare, or routine, and we'll discuss that a little more later. The station of origin, who is either the first amateur handler, so it's either your call sign or the tactical call sign of the location where you are assigned. In the box it says check. That is for the number of words or groups in the message text body only. That is so that the receiving operator can look at what he has received, count up all of the words that are in the body text, the message body text, and make sure that he's received everything that you have sent. Place of origin, which would be the city or state, the time, which is always filed using a 24-hour clock, and then the date and time. Up in the center of the header box, you'll see a box that's marked HX, which is for handling instructions. Excuse me. These will not be used for messages on the emergency nets in our county, and I doubt very seriously if most people will use them for emergency nets where they're at. Let's talk about the radio precedence. There's 4 levels of precedence in emergency communications. The first one is emergency. Emergency is a message reporting a life or death situation that requires an immediate response, such as you've got a building that's on fire with people that are in it, you've got a traffic accident with serious injuries, something where it's an immediate life or death situation. That is emergency traffic. If you have a traffic accident or a building on fire, but people aren't involved and there's nothing that's really immediate, don't send that as an emergency message. Emergency are life or death situations only. They have priority over all of the traffic on the net. If you have an emergency message, you can break into the net at any time to send the message. And it's normally done by announcing break, break, break. So if you're on a radio and you're talking and you hear somebody say break, 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 let them in. They have an emergency message. They have traffic that has to get out right now. Priority messages are important messages that have a specific time limit and most often include official traffic that's not of an emergency precedence. So if you have something where you are asking for assistance and you need a time on it, you're asking for a medevac and you need an estimated time of arrival, that would be a priority message. Welfare messages. Those are messages that inquire about the health and welfare of an individual or a response to a health and welfare inquiry. One of the things that we'll be doing as ham radio operators is probably setting up with the Red Cross at their shelters. There will be people at the shelters who want to let someone know that they are okay. This is a health and welfare message. So you would use the precedence of W for that type of message. And the very last message is a routine. And that's any message that doesn't meet the emergency priority or welfare message requirements. They're handled last, and sometimes they may not be handled at all if the frequencies are really busy. So if you have a lot of emergency priority and welfare traffic, you can have a routine message that is sitting on your desk for a couple of days before it actually gets sent. On the radiogram form, you'll see a box that says check. And the check is used to designate the total words and groups in the body of the message. It allows the receiving station to determine if they have received the entire message. There are a couple of special circumstances here, such as a telephone number, which is handled and counted as 3 groups. So the area code is one group, the prefix is one group, the suffix is one group. In this example, 707-555-2121 is handled as 3 groups. A standard email address is accounted as 5 groups. So you look at my email address, it would be mgmcarter@outlook.com, which is 5 groups. We use an X or an X-ray for a period, and that's also counted as a group. So at the end of the sentence, if you're using a period, you just say X-ray, and you count that.
We lost it.
So Mike, I've lost your audio. Well, hopefully he's going to pop out and back in. So Cecilia, while we're waiting for him, I'm going to answer your question. The exam fee depends on which group you have. You take the exam from. The online fee is $10. The in-person fee is usually $15. There are some groups that are $0. The amateur radio license itself didn't used to cost anything, and now just within the last year, it's now $35. So that's the answer to that question.
Thank you.
Planning board special.
Ray, do you see him waiting to come back in? I wonder if he lost power.
I will say that I'm in the county and I just lost my internet a moment ago and I was able to hotspot in from my phone. So I got cut out also. That could be part of what's going on.
I was actually thinking about asking you, you folks in the same area.
Yeah, I just have one bar on my phone and was able to hotspot, but it's definitely not a great connection. So I'm assuming that's what happened to him.
Well, let's give it a couple more minutes before we give up.
This is John. Quick question. Where do we pick up the recorded past Zoom calls? And in this one, when it happens? Does anybody know?
Hang on just a minute. Ray, do you want to go ahead and answer that? I'm trying to see if I've got a phone number for Mike.
Okay. Did we lose Mike or did we lose Ray too? Yeah, well, I'll talk to Ray later. He lives in the same town I do.
Okay, and so did you get the flyer? The resources flyer?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, if you got the meeting reminder yesterday, it was an attachment to that.
Oh, okay. I'll go look. Thank you.
And I just put it in chat. Okay, Ray, let's go ahead and close the recording down and we'll just throw this one away because he didn't get enough of a chance to get much of a recording in. And I think we'll give up and reschedule him.
Steve, if you want, I can cover the 213 and the 309.
Well, we're losing a lot of our attendees, though. They're bailing on us.
Okay,
So I'd rather reschedule and we might put you in as a backup. Apparently this is a bad week for Northern California.
it's a bad month for California.
Now they say it's not going to be enough rain to get them over the drought either.
I'm not sure if that's true. We've had 26 inches already, and I think it's gonna rain for another week and a half. But my tanks are full, you know, so I guess it's a matter of how long it stays in the ground and how quick it goes out to the ocean.
So Ray, are you still there? Aha, he's back. So Mike, did you lose internet?
Yes, I did. I have a satellite internet connection and we just had a really big cell can't come through and it knocked my satellite out. So
That's
Where
interesting to know about the satellite service.
yeah. Heavy rain cells and snow on the satellite dish take it out. So
Okay, so we've lost a few people, but I'd like to continue if we can.
sure. Let me
This is
get back.
Rick. Apparently something happened. We dropped a bunch of them. They're slowly coming back in.
Okay, do you want me to wait a few minutes before I start again?
Yeah, let's get back to your slide where you were first.
Okay. And actually, I'm not sure where I got knocked out.
Okay, we definitely saw that slide. I was kind of distracted here, so I'm not sure exactly where you were.
You were going to the next slide. There. That would have been the
Okay.
next slide.
Okay. You want me to go ahead and continue now?
Yeah, let's go ahead. We do have the option of
Okay.
rescheduling if you want, but let's go ahead. What I might do is have you do it again in a couple, 3 months.
Okay,
And that way
Not a
we can have a
problem.
different audience.
sounds good to me. Okay, if the messages between designated emergency facilities such as an emergency operations center, medical facility, or a shelter, the tactical call sign is sufficient information in the to and received addresses. So all you have to do is include their tactical call sign in the address if you're sending it to them or if you're receiving a message from them. If the message is a health and welfare message, it is directed to a specific person, all of the to information should be completed. An email address can be substituted for the telephone number, and I would highly recommend putting an email address in there. Because a lot of people, especially people who do have satellite, even in a situation where the internet is knocked out, they can send an email message to that person. So an example of a health and welfare message with a check count of 22. Robin, am fine at Willett Shelter, X-ray. Will call when phone restored, X-ray. Call Michelle, 707-555-2121. Let her know, X-ray. So there's your health and welfare message that is going to a person and informing them to call someone else, giving them a phone number. And if you look on there, it has a count of 22. One of the things on the ARRL radiogram is it's pretty much restricted to 25 words or symbols. The signature box on the bottom of the form can contain any identifying information for the party sending the message. Could just have a name like Mike, or it's their brother John, or it's Rod on parcel 5, etc. So whatever they need in the signature box to just generally inform them who the message is coming from. Let's talk about using a simplex relay. Let's say that you're used to using repeaters. Suddenly your repeater system isn't working, but you want to send a message, and it's a message that you can't send directly on simplex. You're going to use what's known as a simplex relay. The originating station will complete the radiogram and fills the sent box with the station call sign of the first relay station. The first relay station copies a radiogram and enters the following information: their call sign in the received box, the sending station in the received REC-D box, and the station they're sending to in the sent box. The only information that will change as the message is relayed are the message number, the received by, the received from, and the sent to boxes. Each succeeding station does the same thing until the message arrives at the to addressee. So let's look at how that would look. I am sending a message, station of origin, KC6MGM. It's my message number 3. It's a routine precedence. It has a check of 17. There's 17 items in the text box. It's coming from Laytonville, California. I'm filing it at 12:45 on June the 11th. The to box, I am sending it to station AE60X. The message needs status of available hams in the Point Arena and Wallala area, or Wallala, for deployment to Lake County EOC X-ray. The signature, my signature, M. Carter, KC6MGM. Now I am sending this, if you look at the sent box down on the bottom, to WB9NJS. WB9NJS is a station I know I can receive and send to from my location. So I make up this radiogram, I send it to WB9NJS. WB9NJS receives it. You'll notice this radiogram message was received by WB9NJS. It's still going to AE60X, but you'll notice the number in here, it has a 3 and a 7. If you look back at mine, my original number was a 3. This now says 3 and 7. 3 is the number of the message he's received. 7 is the number of the message he is sending. So he can track that on his radio log. Everything on the top line stays the same. It's still routine coming from me. Check of 17, place of origin, date and time are all the same. But when you get down on the bottom, you see the receive box now says it's coming from me, KC6MGM, at 6:11 at 12:50. He's sending it to KK6RPX. And he's going to send it on 6:11 at 13:05. Now he knows that he can get to KK6RPX, who is closer to AE60X. So I sent the message to WB9NJS. WB9NJS is sending it to KK6RPX. Whoops. So KK6RPX receives the message. Again, everything in the top line is the same except for the number. He received WB9NJS number 7. He's sending it as his number 4. Everything here stays the same. But down in the bottom of the receive box, he received it from WB9NJS on 6/11 at 13:05. And he is sending it to AE60X. That's who it's meant to go to on 6/11 at 13:10. So one simple message has gone from me to WB9NJS to KK6RPX, and it ends up at AE60X. Now, AE60X, when he sends a response, will probably send it just the same way backwards. AE60X will send it to KK6RPX, who sends it to WB9NJS, who then sends it to me. Are there any questions on using the radiogram as a relay form? Okay, one of the hardest things that you are going to do is to send messages clearly and at a speed which allows the receiving operator to copy without rushing. This is one of the hardest things for people to accomplish because we're used to talking on the radio at the speed I'm talking to you now. Nobody can copy my speed unless they know shorthand or some kind of special code to write down everything I'm saying at this speed. So you want to remember to transmit the message, not to read it. Like I said, it's one of the hardest skills in traffic handling to master. Using pauses to frame groups clearly helps a lot. But you have to assume that the receiving operator is copying with the pen and paper unless you're advised otherwise. It always takes a lot less time to send the message correctly the first time than it takes to negotiate repeats or fills of missing or uncertain parts. The importance of clearly spaced groups and sending can't be overemphasized. It's crucial to correct message copy. One of the useful tricks that I found to overcome the natural tendency to speak too rapidly is to say a group or phrase, pause, spell it to yourself as though you're writing it, and continue to when you visualize that the receiving operator is finished. So I'm going to send that sentence to you, and I get to and, A-N-D, continue, C-O-N-T-I-N-U-E, when, W-H-E-N. I spell it to myself at what I think is the speed he can write it down. If you do that, you're going to be able to send it in a speed that most people are going to be able to copy. You can also send in 5-word groups with the pause to allow the other operator to catch up with your transmission. That way, if you say send in 5-word groups, give a pause, and you could say again after in. Okay, after in 5. It gives them a chance to do the fill right there, as opposed to waiting until the whole message is over. 2 stations passing traffic on voice don't have the luxury of duplex operation like you have on a phone, where you can both actually talk at once. You have to work together using the skills that come from training and experience to know what each other is doing without direct feedback. And it's a primary purpose of standard protocols. If you can't copy down the message as it's sent, you run into a problem in the fact that the people who are the recipients of the message won't get all of the information that they need. Any questions on the ARRL radiogram? Okay, let's go to the ICS 213 message form. The general message form, ICS, which is the Incident Command System form, is used by incident personnel to transmit and record messages that cannot be orally transmitted to the intended recipients. The ICS is used by the Incident Communication Center for transmission via radio or telephone to the addressee, and it's a 3-part form. This is a standard form used in almost every emergency operations center. And quite often it's actually used within the emergency operations center itself. Because if I'm in planning, I need to know while I'm making my plan what logistics has on hand as far as equipment. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write this message out, asking them if they have 100 reels of hose and somebody to transport it to a specific location. And I'm going to have it sent over to logistics, and logistics is going to send me a reply. Now, why do I do that? It's called covering your butt. So if something happens, I have a message that says, here's what I sent to them and here's what they sent back. That's why I planned it this way. So this is used in the community or in the incident command center. It's also used to send messages to other locations. So any message or notification to incident personnel that requires a hard copy delivery is on an ICS form. It could be that you are sending a message to a incident command center, but you're using an ARRL radiogram. So what we have in our incident command center is we have both the ICS 213 forms and the radiograms. So when somebody goes to send a message, they can tell us what type of a message it is, and we use the appropriate form. Most of the messages that are going to be coming from the incident command center will be on the ICS 213. It can be initiated by incident dispatchers or any other personnel on an incident. On the completion, the ICS is delivered to the addressee or delivered to the incident communication center for transmission. One copy of the ICS 213 should be maintained by the radio operator for inclusion with the radio log when submitting the forms to the documentation unit at the conclusion of the emergency. The ARL radiogram should be done in 2 copies. One copy is the original copy that comes to the radio operator to send. He tears off the second copy and keeps it for his log. On the ICS 213, you have 3 copies. So one of those 3 copies is maintained by the radio operator so that it can be submitted with his log. When you're looking at the ICS 213, the incident name, which is optional, if there's an incident name that is assigned, it will be assigned by the Emergency Operations Center. Then you have the 2 name, both the name and the position of who the message is going to. Now, sometimes it might not be the name because I'm sitting at the Emergency Operations Center and I want to send a message to a hospital in Fort Bragg, California. I don't know the name of the person it's going to, but I do know the position. So it could just be director and then the position on there as opposed to his name and the position. The from, name, and position, whoever is filling out the form should know their own name and their position. Then there's a subject of the message, the date and time, month, day, and year. The time is using a 24-hour clock. Then there's the message, and on this form, the message is sort of open-ended. There aren't any specific number of boxes that have to be filled in, like the 25 on the radiogram. But try and be as concise as possible. You don't want someone who's trying to send a 200-word message on the radio because radio time is really short. You have to make sure that the messages are short so other people can use that same frequency. Then there's the approved by, name, signature, position, and title. And on the bottom half of it is a space for the reply and who replied. So here's an example. The incident name is the really big fire. It's going to the logistics officer at the Emergency Operations Center. I don't know his name, but he's a logistics officer at the Emergency Operations Center. It's from the Howard Hospital Chief Operating Officer. The subject is an emergency medevac. The date is 10/18/18 at 1800. Message: need emergency medevac from Howard Hospital to St. Helena for cardiac patient with 40% third-degree burns. So that's the message they're sending. Now, If you look in the bottom of that box, box number 7, you'll see where it says Howard, number 12, check 19, 10/18/18/1805. That is put in there by the ham radio operator specifically for ham operations. Now, why is it put in there? You're going to be logging this message in your log. Howard is the tactical call sign for Howard Hospital. Number 20 or #20 or #12, excuse me, is the message number for your log. It has a check of 19. If you count the words there, there's 19 words. And 10/18/18 at 1805 is when it was sent. So you now have documentation on the ICS 213 message form that would match the documentation that is already on the ARL radiogram and will match the documentation in your log. So it's approved by D-Doctor, and his position is Howard COO. You send the message, you get a response back. Reach 18, which is one of our emergency medevac helicopters, dispatched with an estimated time of arrival of 1817. And there again, in the bottom of that box, you've got the same information from the EOC with their number, the check sum, and also the date and time that it was sent. But those boxes or that information will normally only appear on messages that are sent by ham radio operators. That won't be in the box when you receive it from, in this case, from the Howard Hospital COO. He won't have that information written in that box. That's your responsibility to write it in so it matches up with your log. Now, for filing, stations have 2 folders for messages, one for completed messages and one for pending messages. The completed message folder contains the copies of messages that require no response. Hospital status reports, change of shift information, road closure information, etc. The pending message folder contains copies of messages that require response, supplier equipment requests, emergency response requests, such as that medevac, requests for status reports. Anything where you're expecting an answer back goes into the pending folder. So with an ICS 213, the originating station, the originator will keep copy 3 of the message and send the original copy to the radio operator. The radio operator receives the original. They write the tactical call sign, the next outgoing message number, the check number, and the date and time in the box in the bottom of box 7, like we showed you on the example. Then the radio operator transmits the message and files the 2 copies in the pending message folder because you're expecting a response. And you enter the message in the communications log. Upon receipt of the response, you retrieve the original copies from the pending message folder, complete the response in box 9, and include the tactical call sign, message number, check number, and date and time in the bottom of the box, like in the example. The radio operator will then tear off the second copy that he keeps and send the original copy to the originator, and then enter the response in the communications log. So what happens here is I originate a message. I keep the pink copy. I send the white and original and the yellow copy to the radio operator. The radio operator writes the information in the bottom of box number 7 as far as who it's coming from, the message number, etc. They transmit the message. They put it in their pending folder. When they receive a response, they pull that out. They fill in box number 9 with the response and also the tactical call sign of the entity sending the message along with the message number and check number. They then take the yellow copy off and keep it and send the white copy back to me. Now, what does this mean? It means I am the originator. I have the original copy, the white copy, with both my request and the response. The radio operator has a copy with both my original message and the response. The radio operator on the other end has the same thing, and so does the person who actually sent the message. So everybody has a copy of the original message and the response. Any questions on that? So are there any questions on the ICS 213 form? Let's talk about the ICS 309, the communications log. The communications log is used to record all incoming and outgoing messages. The communications log will be prepared by each operator at each activated location. And each operator will leave their log at the location at the end of the shift. At the end of the activation, the last radio operator will attach all of the communications logs to all of the message copies and forward the package to the EOC Documentation Center. Now, if you look at this log, this is the one that we prefer to use in Mendocino County. If you go online and you look online, you'll find all kinds of ICS 309 communications logs.
Like where was other stuff maybe? It just, it feels like a little loose.
We need everybody to mute their, computers. We prefer to use this one for one reason. It has a from and a to column, which makes locating messages that you received and messages that you sent very easy, as opposed to having one column. So let's say you're using the form that has one column and you're trying to find the message number 7 that you sent, but you've received 3 message number 7s from other people. Now you have to go down and find the right one, as opposed to just going right down the 2 columns to message number 7 and it's there. So that's the reason why we like to use this one, which has a from and a to column on it. So on the communications log, you'll enter the incident name if there is one, the operational period, which is the date and the time, 24-hour clock, your position tactical call sign, the radio operator name and the FCC call sign. Then in box number 5, which is the body of the form, you have the received or transmitted messages information. And on the bottom, there's the name and call sign of the person preparing the 309, the date and time it was completed, and the page number on the ICS 309. Now you will notice on the ICS 309 down at the bottom, it says page blank of blank. Every individual operator will prepare a log for their shift. So if you have a situation that lasts for 48 hours and you're running 8-hour shifts, you're going to have 6 logs. The first person, when they get done with their log, writes in page number 1 of and leaves the of blank. Second person comes in, page number 2 of and leaves the of blank. The very last person who closes the actual emergency location takes all of the logs and sits down there and goes page 1 of 77777, and they put the 7 in the very last box, or the 8 or the 11, depending on the total number of logs. And that way, all of the logs have a page with a beginning and the total number of pages on for that entire log system. Section 5 of the communications log contains the information for the messages. Incoming and outgoing messages are recorded on separate lines, and that will assist with tracking and routing. The from message number will be the message number sent by the transmitting station. The to message number will be your station next sequential number issued. The message space is for a brief general description of the message contents, such as a Howard supply request, HHSA sit rep, Ukiah shelter report, etc. So it's just something so that when you look at it, you can, oh yeah, message number 7 was a supply request. Other information that results in the transmission of information should also be logged. That would be primarily administrative messages to and from the station. You only have to include information that is meant to or from your station, not for any other stations. It would also include station activities such as off and on air times, relief operator, etc. For administrative messages, you can just use admin for the message number. Administrative messages from other stations other than the Emergency Operations Center are not required to be entered in the log unless it's a directed message to your station. But a rule of thumb, if you transmit anything, go ahead and log it. So here's an example. We have the incident name and activation number. It's a 2018 tsunami warning. The operational period, date and time from 10/18/18 at 11:30 to 10/18/18 at 1600. Red Cross Shelter, Fort Bragg is the actual location. And then Fort Bragg RCS is the tactical call sign. I'm the radio operator, M. Carter, KC6MGM, so my name and call sign goes in box 4. Now we'll look at the actual box number 5. At 11:30, I sent message number 1 to the EOC that we opened the shelter. At 11:55, I sent message number 2 to the EOC requesting a Red Cross shelter trailer. At 12:23, the EOC sent me their message number 7 that the Red Cross trailer was sent with an ETA of 13:30. 12:55, I sent the EOC my message number 3 requesting 5 CERT personnel. 13:45, I sent the EOC my message number 4, which is a follow-up on the Red Cross shelter trailer. You'll notice in the third line, they had an ETA of 13:30. At 13:45, I'm sending them a request to find out what happened. It should have been here 15 minutes ago. 13:50, the EOC sends me their message number 15 that the 5 CERT personnel have been sent with an ETA of 1500. At 14:40, the EOC sent me their message number 22 that the RC trailer has a new ETA of 1500. At 1500, I sent the EOC my message number 5, which was the shelter situation report. 15:15, I sent the EOC an admin message I'd be off the air until 15:30. 15:35, sent an admin message to the EOC that I'm back on the air. 15:55, the Ukiah Red Cross sent me their message number 6 that 5 Red Cross personnel were sent with an ETA of 16:45. Then at 1600, I was relieved by WB9NJS. Then I would go down to the bottom of this log and I'd fill out that information. WB9NJS will start a new log where it will be from 8/18/18 at 1600 to 8/18/18 at 2400. And then he'll start a new log, which will be log number 2. Any questions on the radio log? Okay, there will be other entities where ham radio operators will be assigned that have their own report forms. They'll primarily be medical facilities, shelters, and school districts. The Red Cross has a whole slew of forms that they use. And you'll probably end up having to send Red Cross shelter reports. The same thing with the medical facilities with their situation reports, school districts with their situation reports. I know all 3 of the agencies here have their own situation reports that are primarily transmitted between their respective EOCs and their subunits. So the Office of Education has their own EOC, Health and Human Services has their own EOC. But when we dispatch radio operators to the school districts and to the healthcare facilities, they're going to have to be able to send the reports on the appropriate forms from those facilities. Most of them have the forms available at their respective locations, and so does the Red Cross. There's a lot of shelter forms that are already online, and most of the Red Cross shelter trailers that we have here have packets of forms in them. So those forms will be available, but radio operators have to be able to go ahead and send using those forms. So we've discussed the proper completion of the radiogram, the ICS 213 form, and the ICS 309 communications log. In the event of an emergency such as a power shutoff or fire, those are the primary forms that are used for message traffic by the Emergency Operations Centers, Health and Human Services Administration, Office of Education, and they will also be forms used for health and welfare messages from shelters. When you're sending the health and welfare message, it will normally be on a radiogram. We're in the process of providing packets with radiograms, communications logs, and instruction sheets. And we even put 2 pre-sharpened pencils in the package for our local radio operators so that they'll actually have the forms and they can go out and respond when we need help. Any questions on any of this?
This is Frank Hutchins in Spokane. One
Yeah.
comment I would make is that people need to realize that these forms are legal documents.
Yes.
And when you are done with them, you need to make sure they're filled out completely and that you turn them in to the proper superior that you will be having. Because they, like I said, they'll be legal documents. If there's ever an issue, they'll refer to these. They can refer to them in a court of law.
Yes, that's right. And in actuality, there is an ICS 214. And the ICS 214 is an activities log. I know in Mendocino County, they will accept our ICS 309 radio log in lieu of the ICS 214 activity log, because the radio log shows every message we received and sent, when we got there, when we left. It's got all of the information. As a matter of fact, it's got more information as far as our function as a radio operator than the actual 214 would. And it keeps us from having to duplicate, saying, okay, I logged this on the 309, now I have to log it on the 214, then back to the 309, then back to the 214. They will accept the radio log as an official document. At the end of the function, when let's say Howard Hospital, the Howard Hospital radio operator will take all of the logs, will take all of the messages, the copies of the messages sent, package them all together, and they are delivered to our Emergency Operations Center for filing. So the Emergency Operations Center can go in to the event, pull out the stuff for Howard Hospital and see every message that was sent and received on the log, and then they'll actually have a copy of every message that was sent and received. So if there is any kind of a legal action, they've got the documentation right there. It says, here's what was sent, here's what was received, here's the date and time it's sent, and here's who sent it. So yeah, it's a legal document. Any other questions? Okay.
Well, this is Frank again.
Uh,
I was going to
Yeah,
mention,
Frank.
in our locality, the 214 is used to record activities. The 309 is used to record messages. So combined, they give a complete record of what happened. But that's just how we do them here. What you do is dependent upon who you are working for.
Absolutely. And we've got some counties in California that really love ham radio operators, and some counties in California, the one that's right next to us, they want nothing to do with ham radio operators. And we've got a bunch of ham radio operators over there who are really frustrated because when there's an emergency and the power goes out and the phones go out and everything else goes out, their Emergency Operations Center doesn't contact them at all. Ours loves us and works very closely with us. So each one will have their own set of rules. And fortunately for us here, they have decided that the radio log is sufficient to replace the activities log for the ham radio operators. Other people who are here working in the emergency operations center have to keep the ICS 214. But we can use the ICS 309 as our activities log. Anything else? You can find all of these forms online, but the ICS form that you find online, the radiogram you find online, the radio log you find online, when you print it out, it's a single copy. I've actually, we've made arrangements here with Health and Human Services through one of the ham radio operators who coordinates all their stuff, through the Mendocino County Office of Education, through one of the ham radio operators who coordinates all of their stuff. They actually had NCS forms printed for the radiogram. So they have dual copy NCS radiograms available at all of their locations. That way, when you fill out the form, you just tear the yellow copy off and that's for your files. I've been working with our emergency operations center and they are actually having the ICS 213s run off as 3-copy forms with they'll have the white, yellow, pink copies so that they actually have those, as opposed to if you actually need a copy, sitting down and either putting it on a copy machine if there happens to be a copy machine there that's functional, or sitting and writing out a second copy so that you have a copy for your files. So you might want to check with your emergency operations and make sure that they have multi-copy radiograms and ICS 213 forms. If there are no further questions, thank you for attending. I'm sorry that we had that little bit of a glitch when I disappeared, but we got it fixed and I got back. Steve, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I noticed a couple of things where we do things differently as well, so we could discuss that on the side later on. But I appreciate that. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, we'll kick you all loose. Next week, we're going to have the rescheduling of the Kitsap County program on how they do their micro islands. He had some technical difficulties last time and still haven't rescheduled mine from the December 21st when the class ran over because of the question and answer session. Didn't really have time to fit it in, so I haven't rescheduled that one yet either. And if anybody has things that they would like to see presented or they have things that they want to present, let me know, because we're those are the last 2 things that we've got scheduled right now. We don't have anything beyond that, so hoping for some other people stepping in and making presentations. And I guess we're all free to go. Thank you.
Try and stay
Before you
dry.
go, this is John.
Thank
Hi,
you.
John.
What kind of things are you looking for?
What would you like to present?
Well, that's my question.
Oh, Ray, you can stop the recording too.
Because as Ray knows, I've done some different things. And
I will send you on the side a list of what's been presented,
okay,
plus a list of things that we kind of would like to, people have suggested, but we don't have a person to do it yet. So if you have a specialty that you'd like and it kind of fits with our program here, that would be great.
well, is it more focused on the emergency management system versus ham radio, or is it?
Well, it
Right.
doesn't have to be, it's kind of slanted that way, but if you have something, one of the ones on the list is like emergency drinking water. And that's not a radio related thing either. I think I'd like to have some units on solar panels. I'd like to have some on FL Digi, maybe some FT8 or something like that, digital modes. If you're operating your own drone, it would be nice to have a little program on that. There's all kinds of things we can do. This is more of a fun type thing. It's to keep people interested. It's a wider audience type of thing.
Okay. So I've done stuff on FT8. Most of mine are similar to, they're strictly ham radio, parks on the air, logging, that sort of thing. But, and I see that you've got a class coming, or it's a structured class coming up for licensing. And I sent that to our club, Snohomish County Hams Club education guide, and I think he's routing some of the people over there for that.
Okay, yeah, today was the first session and it was the overview. They can get into the class and get along without that if they, if they
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
I know, right?
I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now.
Oh, I thought it was already.
Yeah, I asked you to do that about a minute ago and I don't know if you heard me.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to till now.